Hey guys, it's Rick here from Art of Guitar, and I'm joined by the great, the famous Rabea Massaad.
Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. And you've come all the way to Dubai with your brothers from Neural. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's the first time I've been here before. And we've done a lot of traveling around the place, around the world with Quad Cortex and doing clinics and workshops and stuff like that. It's cool for me because I get to travel also with my best mates, because Dan and Max and those guys are like long time friends.
They're your brothers, yeah?
Yeah, man.
And Dubai's a bit special as well.
It is. It's where my parents met back in the 80s, early 80s.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's
cool great to have an excuse to bring you back here, and we are so privileged. I've been here just over 10 years now, and the change to Dubai is just incredible.
Really?
So from back in the 80s,
yeah,
who knows what it was?
I think it was a lot smaller, probably.
So much smaller. But the place you're in, Art of Guitar in the Courtyard, it was one of the first places in the whole of Dubai that was open because it's slightly raised.
Right.
So you had the Sheikh Zayed Road and you had the Courtyard, and it was all built. So this is like 25, 35 years old.
Wow.
And it's all reclaimed from around the region, all built. So
that's wicked.
It's, yeah, it was part of the reason to choose the place, because obviously it's all humidity controlled, and you know we can have the great guitars and the great artists that come and visit us.
It gets pretty toasty around here, around these parts.
It does get toasty, and that's why, you know, the whole of the place humidity controlled all year round, 45 relative humidity, and you know you've got to do that with guitars, so it's so important. But we're so pleased that you've come over, and we've got a couple of workshops coming up. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, so similarly to what we've done in other parts of the world, my very good friend Max, he's head of artist relations, but also more or less the product specialist too. Both me and him, we jump on stage. I'll play a couple of my songs, and then Max sort of goes through the general functionality of Quad Cortex, how it works, the benefits of using it, the things that are really nice about it. I play, demonstrate different tones and sounds, and then we sort of, similar to what we're doing here, just riff off each other and kind of just mess around with different tones, dial things in, and explain some of the cool, you know, like sort of ways you can use it, you know. I think this mic's drooping.
We don't want a drooper.
No, we don't.
We'll have to keep that bit in as well.
Yeah, it's demonstrating different use cases for the product. Because obviously I use
You'll explain what use cases are as well to the uninformed, like myself.
Like when I'm gigging, how I go about dialing in a preset that works for my tones live. You know, because I like to use a lot of different pedals, like fuzz and overdrive. I like to use different amounts of reverb and delay for the songs for certain sections. Like a verse might have a bunch of reverb and delay, whereas the chorus might be dry just for riffs. So those are the use cases, and then it's showing people how that's dialed in on the product.
Is it going to persuade the doubters? That's what I'm thinking. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but up until about 3 years ago, at Art of Guitar, if it didn't have a tube in it, we wouldn't even let it through the door. Right. You know, and it really. And yourself, I know as a guitarist, I think there was a time where tube, classic amps, all of that. What is it about the Neural that changes people's mind? And I know it does, because I've sent it to some of my best friends who are exactly like me. They won't play anything that's not tube driven. Yeah. And they're like, I don't play anything except the Neural anymore. Yeah. So what is it about it that's done that? How's it done it?
I think it's a combination of a few key factors. I think, like you said a minute ago, I've always used tube amps up until Quad Cortex. You know, I used 2 tube amps in stereo with true stereo effects, pedal board, you know, like Strymon reverb and delay, and a bunch of gig rig switcher and all that stuff. Yeah. And that was every time I played live or anything, it was always that rig. Yeah. And the traditional sound, the real sound, as we all thought. And it would have taken a lot for me to look elsewhere. Yeah. And I think what was my story with it was kind of beneficial, not only because the guys I know really well, so they sent me one when it first launched, but also it was right at the height of lockdown, so we were all stuck indoors. So I had plenty of time to just sit with it and get to know it and understand And I remember my first initial reaction was the feel of it was really nice. I remember thinking, you know, when you dig in with your pick, like you felt like a thump that you only really can associate with like a tube amp, you know, when you've got a tube.
When you really push it and you get and it almost pushes you back.
Yeah, there's a thump feeling to it. And it was able to recreate that, you know, through studio monitors at home.
You show us a little bit of what you're talking about there? I
mean, I've dialed in a quick preset and it depends. It's more of a feel thing, but like if I... It has like it's just the way it just feels weighty. And that's what a tube amp feels like.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you can turn it up, but just in the way it...
And no tone lag or anything like that.
I mean, that might not, over the YouTube or however you're listening to this podcast, it might not necessarily translate, but when you're sat with it and you feel there's like a girth to it, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain.
Makes all the sense to me. But, and as I say, if it didn't have a tube, it doesn't come through the door. And now we sell more of these babies than anything else, as does everybody else in the world. I mean, it's the best-selling music product in the world. There's got to be a reason, right?
Yeah. So. But that was my initial reaction was, wow, this feels really good. But then on top of that would be the first main factor is the feel of it. And then I think for me, what I started to really enjoy was the workflow. The fact that it's like having an iPad dialed in. So you can just, you know, you can drag stuff around, you know, you can click and, you know, mess, and the foot switches have dials on them too, so you can turn them up and down.
But you're not going to be doing that on a stage, though, are you? So you set that all up first, and then it's just literally,
and then you've got
it's just like a traditional pedal board, then that you can turn things on and off.
You've got a couple of different modes. This is gig view, and and each of these can be labeled like verse, chorus, riff, whatever. And scenes allow you to take a device like you can see on the camera, but you can, for example, this is my amp block and I've got the gain assigned to a scene. So on this foot switch, my gain's low, but if I move to this foot switch, gain's on full. Do you know what I mean? Because I've set that up. So that's how you go about creating all of these cool tones.
So you're building your whole rig into there. Yeah. Anything missing at all, or you do everything with that?
For as far as tones are concerned and effects and everything, I do it all from the box now.
You can do that.
I mean, there's one or two effects that they're bringing to this eventually because they're always developing and updating it and finding new effects that come out and going, we can create that, so we're going to build that. And that's what I like is because it's software based, they can update it. You know?
And that's another thing that's amazing about the company is it's a brilliant product, and yet every time I go back to the website or see them on Instagram, there's a new update, there's a new patch, there's a new, tone case. Did you call it? What do you call it?
Tone chase. I don't know what I called it.
Tone case. So it was a brilliant product anyway, and yet it just keeps getting better and better and better all the time. And I think that's why people love it so much as well. They've got it, but it's not a static.
No, it's not just here it is, that's it now for the rest of the time. It's always being updated. Like just recently they brought, because they're most famous for making those plugins for your computer, and they've just recently released an update that allows you to use those plugins on the device, which is a huge leap
and was
for them.
A massive success, I believe.
Well, yeah, because the plugins were designed on completely different architecture for a computer, like a Mac, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is built completely differently. So being able to make it so that those can work on there is a huge step forward, and they're going to bring all the other plugins now, including mine, and so I'm very excited.
Well, we're so excited to see it all live. For you, it was a bit of trial by fire.
Yeah.
Stormzy gig.
Yeah.
Everybody goes back to that. Tell us a little bit about that, but why it was such a trial by fire. I mean, you put your reputation into this machine, really, didn't you?
Well, it was because I got offered the gig, which was mental in the first place. For those who don't know, Stormzy's like one of the biggest artists in the UK. He's a rapper, and they were doing Leeds and Reading Festival, which traditionally was like a rock festival back in the day. He was headlining it, so it was like the producers of that particular show, because he has people that design the show
it on Instagram.
On Insta, in the DMs.
But so for old men like me, just explain how you get offered a gig with Stormzy on Instagram.
Well, it was just in my inbox. So I remember going in there and seeing the musical director.
I better read my inbox. I might have some gig offers, Yeah,
but it is one of those you should definitely keep on top of your inbox messages, because I almost missed it. But anyway, their musical director was saying that because it was an old school rock festival back in the day, they wanted to hark back to that a little bit with this particular show he was doing. So they wanted to open it with a guitarist, lead solo, riffs, fire, all this stuff. And so they found me. I have no idea how, but they were like, "Would like you to be the guy to open the show." And they asked me if I could do a heavy rock version of one of his songs, Big Michael. So
no pressure there then, yeah?
Well, yeah, at the time I thought, well, I'll give it a go. So I made a demo at home, played big riffs and whatever.
How long do you think about an offer like that? About a quarter of a second.
Well, it's funny because my sister's a massive fan. So I asked her, I said, "Do you reckon I should take it?"
And she's like, "You haven't said yes yet?"
She's like, "Are you stupid? Of course you should take it." So I made the demo. They were really into it. So I went to rehearsals and all that kind of stuff. And one of the stipulations of the gig was, you can't have amps on stage. There's a full stage build. It's all about the show. So you can't have your amps there. I play Victory amps, usually would have had a full stack, all the rest of it. They're like, you can't have any of that. So I'm like, well, the only other thing that I can think of is Quad Cortex. It's a modeler. It's not even allowed on stage. So I can't even have this box on stage, It's got to be wireless. It's got to be, and it's got to change with MIDI, which means the whole thing changes by itself. Let's say they open a Logic session on your Mac.
So was Max backstage somewhere like...
No. I was by myself.
You're just completely alone.
Yeah, they have a playback team.
I mean, I've seen the video so many times, and it's just you, right?
Just me.
It's just you.
But it was mental.
When did you find out it was just going to be you?
We did 3 days of chess rehearsals before Reading, because it was Reading and then Leeds. So it was a 3-day dress rehearsal straight into the shows. And I remember we started out by just going over the songs, and they're like, right now, dress rehearsal time. So this is like day 2 of pre-production. And they were like, and the choreographer came up to me and she was like, right, so we've marked out on the floor, there's that X on the floor there. We just need you to walk out at this point and stand exactly there, and you'll do your bit, and then everyone else will come out. And I was like, so what, the band are going to be on stage too?
Where's the other X's?
I was like, yeah, the band are going to be there too. She's like, no, it's just you. And I'm like, 15 minutes before we're going on stage, I'm waiting stage side, I'm going over my bits. I'm a little bit nervous because it was first gig out of lockdown, so I hadn't played a show for 2 years. So I was like, oh, it's going to be intense. And then the musical director's like walking around going, I love these pre-broadcast vibes behind stage. Well, broadcast? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, it's going to be on BBC.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Is it? I had no idea. And then the final thing that made the whole thing really intense for me was I'd torn my ACL. So I'd torn my ACL ligament. I was having surgery 2 weeks after the show, and I had to have a leg brace on to hold my knee in place, because when I was walking, it was just buckling, and I had to stand there and rock out. So the whole thing was like so intense, but it was amazing. And it went well. It was.
And you didn't show any pressure at all. I mean, you straight into it, you bombing and everything. Have you got any little bits of that you can play us to remind? I mean, listen, everybody, you've got to go to that link and watch that.
Yeah, you can check it out, because it's mainly
insane.
Riffs. It was mainly riffs, just a bit of riffing, but having the QC do all the sound was, like you said, I did put all my trust in it, and also for Neural, because it had come out over lockdown, they hadn't been able to road test it with any big arena bands or anything, so no one really knew. They knew it was going to work, but no one had any...
So for them, they were putting their trust in you as well. Yeah, I mean, it was a complete, we're relying on each other here.
But it worked perfectly. Did the job.
Really.
Sounded good.
Go and watch it after this video, because it is perfect. It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the quad, and maybe some of the things. Play a couple of different things and explain how it works, if you could, just for the beginners like me and the converts that we need to convert.
Yeah, well, I will distill it down into as quick as possible. But in essence, the modeler itself has like 50 to 100, maybe more, different amplifiers you can use, different speaker cabinets you can use, different types of delay, whether it's digital, tape, whatever, reverbs, octave pedals, compressors, has everything. So like if you want to add one, you just press anywhere and you can see all these different things. So you got like load of cabs, load of overdrives, load of modulation, delays, even reverbs. So you've got this library of sounds to choose from. I've made one really quick here. Then you've got your signal comes from the left, goes out on the right.
And this one that you would use. So is this a kind of?
I made this just before we filmed this, but this is essentially what I would use.
Can we have a listen?
Yeah. So let me show you the first scene. So this is basically my Victory rig. So these models are my Victory Krakens, and I've got a cabinet there with reverb and delay, but I can play like. So like that's the kind of sound I would normally mess around with. But what I was saying earlier was with scenes, which is this way you can kind of expand on this sound. Because I've built this rig. Yeah. So I've got like amps, cabs, reverbs. If I want to get more out of it, I can use scenes that are mapped out here and basically go through and change things like the amount of gain I'm using. So like that, it moves around. And I can take the same exact rig but dial it in exactly how I want for each scene. So this is my kind of chilled one. So like, I can go across and have like high gain and loads of reverb. And it's the same rig. All I'm doing is turning things off or turning things up automatically with the push of a button. By dialing it in, I can have one with octave, like I can have a big ambient preset, which is just like
wow, and it's instantaneous. It's literally like going from one rig to another.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But it's all built out of the same preset. All that's really changing are the parameters themselves. So like the amount of reverb, the amount of delay, the amount of distortion on the amp, because it's got this mode called scenes, which essentially each of these foot switches become a different scene. So E can be, or the bottom one here can be my clean. Then I can press that one, have a little bit more gain, bit more reverb, bit more gain, octave on, overdrive on, whatever. And you can build this like rig. And so when I'm doing gigs, for example, I could call that verse, like that, for example. I could call this one chorus. And the idea is that when I'm playing a gig, I can see this gig view and it'll say verse, chorus, heavy riff, ambient. And that's how you sort of navigate it when I'm playing live. It's really, really cool. It's modern, but when you get your head around it,
and we've got three sessions to go through this. So
there's a lot more to dig into.
Fantastic, and I cannot wait for that. A little more about yourself. So you're in a band at the moment.
I am, yeah. It's called Vower, and it's I guess like heavy alternative rock.
Because there was another band before that, right? Well, I mean, you've played in like...
I've played in a lot of bands. Yeah. But, you know, the most notable band I played in was called Tosca, which was an instrumental prog rock band.
Yeah.
And we did really well. We played Download Festival. You know, we'd done a couple of headline tours that sold out over the years. And it was in a niche, but it was popular.
Yeah.
And then that broke up in lockdown. And then so kind of in a niche, a little bit of a supergroup type thing. Even though it's not really like, you know, a super group, but it's like the singer from this one band that was popular, the guitarist and drummer from another band that was really popular. So we all came together and we've released an EP.
It's a new super group, definitely.
Yeah.
And we've done really well. Tour?
Yeah, in February. We got a couple of headline dates.
You got Dubai in there yet?
Not yet. All
right. Well, we'll be talking about that
early
as well.
Doors.
But it's early doors, but we'll definitely be talking about that.
Yeah, people are enjoying it. And I'm just happy to be back in a band again, writing material and going out and gigging.
So what's the future for you then?
For me,
you're doing what you love, right?
Yeah, I mean, having a career in music is mental, especially in not necessarily getting a career out of being in some mega famous band or like anything. It's from being a guitarist in the modern age of internet and social media and being able to...
There's been a resurgence though, right?
I mean, because of social media.
The last couple of years, it's exploded.
Yeah.
It really, there was all, the guitars. The guitars died about 5 times, since I've collected guitars. But it seems the last couple of years, really, even in terms of like famous name guitarists that you hadn't heard of 2 years ago.
Well, it's like technical guitar playing got popular again. And then the internet and social media made it more popular because people started sharing their technical ability. Yeah. It turned more heads onto it. More of these technical bands got more popular. And then the sort of OG tech players like Vi and Satriani and people like that started to engage with the younger generation. And that's why you're seeing them collaborate with new bands.
It's raised the bar, man. I mean, in the past, if you were lucky and you got the right A&R man down to the bar and you saw you. And Back in the day, and told you about the fact I lived with a guy, Toby from Jamiroquai at the time, and he was talking about starting a band, and we saw how that went. But
that's
nowadays,
how it was then.
That is how it was. He went down. He was playing with Jay, and Jamiroquai was born, 7-album deal or whatever, and off they go. But now because of the internet, there's players everywhere that are doing things that guitarists 30 years ago couldn't have even dreamed of doing.
I feel like
they're not in a band,
I'm an example of that, I think, in the sense that as a guitarist, singular, just me, I've been able to have a career, do things like play with Stormzy, have my own Ernie Ball guitar. There's crazy opportunities just from being a guitarist. I didn't have to be in a famous band or anything. It's a wild.
It's become
new
more
world.
like that. Yeah. I go back to London every month, and every time I go, I bring about 12 guitar magazines back for the flight because I'm like I don't sleep on planes. But you're in each one at least 4 times right at the moment, and you've walked around the store, bare knuckle pickups.
Yeah.
We've got the Music Man, your signature guitars here. Obviously the Neurals.
Yeah.
But that's fantastic. And you've done all that purely on your own. There's no A&R man that's come along and put all that together. Yeah. You've done it through social media. Someone's seen you and then put the deals together. And they've come out and signed you up and,
It's madness, and I'm just massively grateful to be able to do this. Like the fact I'm sat here in Dubai and earlier this year in Japan doing it's crazy.
It's fantastic.
So, just soaking it up.
But it's still your own shit. Like I know, again, we were talking last night. You love the guitar. Like you play the guitar because you love the guitar. It's not that Ernie Ball said, we're going to pay you more than somebody else or whatever. You love the guitar. You play the Neural because it works for you. Yeah. And, again, I think that's amazing.
I think nowadays
now.
There is that thing of some people play gear because they're getting paid to use it or anything like that. And the bigger you get on the YouTube scene, when you're demonstrating gear, people start to think you're a shill or you're just saying that because they paid you. Whereas I've always taken pride in the things I use. It's because it serves its purpose as a gigging
people know
rig.
that. People know that.
I hope they do because it's genuinely the truth.
We talk about. I mean, we do this stuff all the time, and people know who the people are who are behind the scenes. It's because there's deals going on, and the people who are literally playing the things that they believe in, and it suits what they play. And I think that's why you get the credibility and the fans that you do. I mean, you coming out here, we only announced it a week or 2 ago, really. And the amount of people that have been phoning in, coming down, how do I get to meet him? How do I get to come to the show? I mean, that's massive. You probably wouldn't have even thought that, out in Dubai, it's like that. And I'm not talking expats, I'm talking locals, I'm talking, people from Kuwait, Qatar, from Saudi saying I'm flying over because I want to come and see it.
I don't know if it's anything to do with being half Arabic myself, something like that, but it's nice that there's an engagement out of this part of the world that I've wanted to come for a long time to be able to meet people and shake hands and just
it's not the,
hang out, really.
we've found the level of knowledge here. Again, I'm not talking expats, I'm talking locals who love the Western style music, sometimes put an Eastern tinge on it as well, which is great. And when Paul Davids came out here, we played around a bit and we put a bit of the Eastern scale into what we were doing. But Matthias Sato's coming out here.
He's incredible. He's an incredible guitar player.
So looking for. But again, we've mentioned that to people, and people are like, when, I've got to come, I've got to be there.
You should definitely go see Matthias play if there's an opportunity to. He's world class.
Yeah. No, we definitely will be there. We definitely will be there. It's going to be amazing. Listen, thank you so much for everything already. It's been fantastic.
Pleasure, man.
The radio last night I thought was brilliant. We've got 3 events coming up very soon, and we're going to get some content from them as well. But they're going to be packed. I think they're already full each event, and we're looking forward to it more than you are probably.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. No, I'm very grateful for being here and for you guys' hospitality and everything. It's wicked.
And thanks to the whole Neural team. And,
yeah.
We'll tell them again ourselves, everybody's welcome, and we're really lucky to have you out here. So thank you so much, Rabea.
Cheers.